Hello everyone, welcome to another Versus Video Deck Tech Premium Versus Video.
Another?
Another.
This is a first, baby.
Yeah, that's right. It's a first for everything. I'm DVD and I'm joined again by Stevie. I'm joined by...
Are you really going to insult this magnificent beard and compare it to that mane? Come on, buddy.
I would never do
This
that.
is glorious.
This is legendary magician Bradley Nelson. Bradley J. Nelson, actually.
That's correct. I don't want to give them my middle name or any more information.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had your address written down, but I'll leave that part out. So yeah, I'm playing with Jund Monsters. This is the deck I played in Cincinnati. I ended up going through, there's a bunch of different decks I wanted to play, and this is the one I ended up settling on because I just felt like it was actually the best positioned deck out of all the decks I was trying. And I actually still feel that it is very well positioned. The kind of decks that are good against this deck are things like Mono Blue, the Burn deck. We didn't really see a lot of those decks in Cincinnati, and unless they decide to spring up again in the next tournament, I would still just play Jund Monsters. So I'm going to talk somewhat about some of the card choices we made for this tournament. First of all, I played 3 Xenaghost the Revelers. A lot of lists are playing cards like Reaper of the Wilds or things like that. But I just think Xenaghost is just way too good to not play, and in fact, it was amazing for me the entire tournament.
Which is shocking to me because, like, I did think the format was going to speed up, and I think it probably takes a little bit of time for people to get cards and really be confident about their decks. For example, like, you just leaned on a deck you knew was good,
yes.
Which is a good place to be. You don't have to deal with all the sorrow that I do with, like, taking a new deck to every tournament, and sometimes, your baby just doesn't, end up working out. But Xenaghost seemed like one of the worst cards to me if people were playing hyper-aggressive, but the best for that top 16.
Yes, yeah, and like I played against Mono Black 4 times in the tournament, and Xenaghost is really just pretty much the best card against that deck out of this deck. It's also very good against the control decks, and it's actually fine in some of the mirror type matches as well, where you can just kind of some of the games become very grindy. You can just kind of grind them out. Especially if you have like Dreadboards and Mizium Mortars to handle some of their threats.
And if you ever get to untap with it, that turn, no matter what, is like your kick Mortars turn if you want to do that, which is one of the most important turns in the mirror matches.
Definitely, yeah. If you get to untap with it, like you can go nuts. I had some big turns where I got to like play Stormbreath Dragon plus for 7 mana, Monstrous the Dragon. And
I've never done that without an Elspeth alongside the Xenaghost.
It's a pretty good feeling. Past that point, like. I played 3 Coursers and 3 Scavenging Oozes because I did expect that the metagame would be kind of aggressive. And these are pretty much the best like anti-aggressive cards that you can play in a deck like this. Just going to gain you a bunch of life and just kind of make it very difficult for your opponent to attack in. Really, you just want to buy time is all you really care about because your top end is just a lot better than those decks. Like once you stick a Polukranos, Stormbreath Dragon, you can start to actually like attack them and kill them. But prior to that point, you just want to play defensively, and having access to Ooze along with removal spells and Courser along with like removal spells is just a great way to stabilize against any of those decks.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that Scavenging Ooze is one of the best cards in this deck because it's just an early spell that your opponents can interact with, don't have to interact with, but it just will eventually start gaining momentum. And even in the late game, it is just this huge, powerful card when both players are attritioned out or racing. I'm a huge Scavenging Ooze. When I played this deck, I played 4. I also played, Wasteland Vipers in my sideboard against aggro decks. That's fun. I'm not going to say it's good. I'm just going to say if the format gets super aggressive, think about playing a Wasteland Viper in your board only for the reason that if they're playing Lightning Strike, you can, chump block a guy or block a guy, 2 guys die, and then when you have 4 mana, you just make a 4/4 and gain 2 life.
Yeah, I actually brought Wasteland Vipers to Cincinnati, but I did not pull the trigger. So.
Okay, so see, I'm not that crazy.
Well, I mean,
or maybe I'm just like,
he's still that great.
You. Yeah.
Actually, I was completely sane until I moved to Roanoke, so things got weird. But yeah, I agree. Like Scavenging Ooze is just like such an integral part of the deck, and it actually kind of brings up like a good point. Is like a lot of the cards in this deck do exactly what like Brad said. Is like they get better and better as the game goes on. Like Polukranos is just a 5/5 for 4, but when you draw him late game, you might be able to Monstrous him and kill a guy. Or like Stormbreath Dragon's just like a smaller Thundermaw Hellkite, but the times you get to Monstrous him, like hit them for a bunch and then make it impossible for them to block. Like a lot of these cards like gain more and more value.
How much better does this get value as the game goes on?
It gets a lot of value. It turns from a 1/1 into a 1/1.
No, it turns into a mana accelerator into a 1/1.
Yes. Yeah, instead of adding mana, you get to attack for 1. That's big game. That's big game.
No, I mean this deck is again another mid-range deck. Like the way that this deck breaks through to the long game is with the Planeswalkers and the kick Mizzy Mortars, and I mean they do have a lot of great abilities. The only thing I will say about this deck, and I still just argue, is when I played Red Green Monsters, my mana base felt stable with only 2 colors, no Mutavaults, and 24 lands. And like you and CVM have always just been playing 23 lands, 2 Mutavaults. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I have to test. Maybe I'm just not as greedy as I should be with mana bases. But like when I just see these Mutavaults, I'm just like, why?
Yeah, Mutavault looks gross, but it's actually surprisingly good, and the deck actually doesn't have that many mana issues. But yeah, actually just having Mutavault is like pretty key. For one, like you want another untapped land, so your coursers are better. And so like you can like not shock yourself to play stuff. And then also, yeah, like just having Mutavault's just such a good thing against like mono black and control decks.
I completely agree
It's
with
definitely worth it.
Cool.
But yeah, this is the main deck. Let's jump into the sideboard. All right, so we have 15 removal spells in our sideboard.
I mean,
not quite, but
yeah.
almost. That's basically what it feels like. And part of me is like a deck builder feels that it's just like wrong to have so many removal spells on your board. But in reality, it actually just is. If this is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah, I mean, it's how Magic is played now. Like a lot of the old theory about how decks should be built years ago have changed because of like the Baneslayer era. Like all of these like powerful cards are now part of Magic that you just have to have the correct answers for the threats. Doomblade doesn't just kill everything.
Right.
Or, like there aren't cards like Maelstrom Pulse or anything like that. Like you just literally need a specific answer to whatever your opponent's playing. So sideboarding in efficient removal or very difficult to beat threats is pretty much where you're at if you're playing creatures. Like there's not much else you can do. Like Mistcutter Hydra, it's like when I play against blue or blue-white control decks, I'm going to attack them with that. And when I play against decks that like have creatures that are tough to kill, I'm going to play Doomblade.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's so many different removal spells here, but I wanted to go for the ones that are like basically like gonna be the best at answering their specific problems. So like Putrefy is like kill Desecration Demon, and like Doomblade is like kill Master of Waves, and like Abrupt Decay is like kill Detention Sphere.
The format.
Yeah, or kill like any creature ever. Yeah,
like,
that I care about.
The entire format.
And
Rakdos' Return is
kill my opponent's hand and their Jace.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or Elspeth.
Yeah, or Elspeth. But one thing I did want is I wanted like the most powerful effects for each thing. Like I wanted the best card that killed Master of Waves, and like I wanted the best discard spell. Like I know like a lot of the lists have played Thoughtseize, but I actually just much prefer Rakdos Return in this deck because I think you just want like this entire deck's just all powerful effects, and I think you just want to have as many powerful effects. Like I don't want to ever be in a situation where like I'm in top deck mode and I draw a Thoughtseize where like my opponent has a Planeswalker. And I'd rather just have a Rakdos' Return.
Your deck has mana, and you should use it.
Exactly.
I mean, like the whole idea about why Jund Monster's so good against control decks is because you attack them on so many different angles, and because you have just so many specific things that they have to have the correct answers for. Rakdos' Return really gets them sometimes. And even if it's in your hand and not top decking, like you can just by playing all your other stuff, they're going to have a turn where they have to invest their mana on their turn. And then once you Rakdos' Return, like the game should be very close to over.
Yeah, and like usually if you have a Rakdos Return in your hand, you can set it up too. Like you
That's
can,
what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, you can like play, an extra creature into the board that you normally wouldn't commit to get them to tap out for Verdict so that you can Rakdos Return their hand.
Yeah, and that's usually enough. Or even just Mistcutter Hydra into Rakdos Returns is just a very good interaction because if they don't want to interact, like if they for some reason like suspect this, but you just play a Mistcutter Hydra and you attack them and they don't have Smite, or not Smite, Reprisal,
right?
Then, I mean, what are they going to do? Not Supreme Verdict?
Yeah.
And just keep getting hit by the Mistcutter Hydra?
Mistcutter Hydra is also awesome because, like, the turns where they're tapped out, you want to play, like, your Stormbreath Dragons and things like that, and the turns where, like, they're obviously representing a counter, then you can just jam Mistcutter and you still just get them. And then Golgari Charm's actually another really good answer to a lot of cards in the format. Like, with Banishing Light, it got a lot better. But also just the other abilities are pretty good too, like regenerating from Verdict. There's a lot of new enchantment creatures. I got to Golgari Charm, like a Master of the Feast, things like that. So there is a lot of value to Golgari Charm now, especially with the Theros block. Yeah. And but yeah, I mean, really the sideboard is like pretty straightforward, just a bunch of removal spells. Vraska's, I guess, an interesting one. It's just such a good top end against other mid-range decks.
Yeah, I've always liked Vraska. Like, I've played it in a lot of different mid-range decks. If they're on the more aggressive spectrum, if they're on the more controlling spectrum, and it's always good because there's always a target, and it always screws up the game in a way. And like the thing I like about Jund Monsters the most, or just Monsters, the theory of it in general is the Planeswalkers are not technically needed for card advantage all the time. They're sometimes just needed for positioning. Like, I play this, I distract you with it, I get a better board now because you invested your turn into like dealing with my Dominant Raid, but now I got my Dragon on the offensive.
Yes.
And that's what Vraska does really well. Takes away their best card on the board, forces them to have to commit resources in killing the Vraska, and can help you position for a win.
Yeah. Like Xenagos a lot of times is make a Satyr, die, but now you play another Xenagos, make another Satyr, and now they're behind.
Way behind, yeah. I mean, it's just very much like a Hunt Master of the Fells. I've always considered it that, like, when you get to untap with it, that's kind of like it flipping.
Yeah.
Like, you just get more value out of it. So,
but yeah, I think this deck is still extremely well positioned. If I was playing in Knoxville or an upcoming tournament, I would definitely play this, and I would play this against Brad Nelson as well.
We're going to see what he thinks after this match is over. Let's just say that.
All right, yeah, we will.
Yeah, we will.
It'll be that the deck's still good.